Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of my Become Unstoppable series, and I have another amazing guest for you today. Hi Nikki, would you like to introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are and what it is you do, my love?
Yeah, hi everyone, my name's Nikkie Windsor. I help people overcome digestive struggles and reclaim that energy and vibrancy in life. So really helping people who are dealing with chronic health issues, digestive issues, that are really impacting on their freedom and their ability to live life to the full. So I do that by being a nutritionist, breathwork coach and health coach.
Amazing. Your title was longer, but I couldn't fit any more of it on there, could I? So, but you're basically the Jungle Goddess, aren't you? So people can find you on most of those, but we'll go through that at the end as well. And when we post all of these, we'll put connections on as well. So those who don't know me, I'm Julie Fitzpatrick. I'm an award-winning therapist and coach, and I mainly work with people who are feeling stressed, overwhelmed, lacking in confidence. But I get them to understand that that is all a habit, right? And through working with the subconscious and conscious mind, we make those fundamental changes at the root cause. So you can basically go from stuck to unstoppable. So before we start, Nikki, as you know, I will ask everybody my unstoppable question. So I'm going to ask you this very question now. What does being unstoppable mean to you?
For me, I think it's about living with chronic illness, chronic condition since I was 15 years old. Unstoppable means to me not letting that chronic illness limit me in life. There's a lot of well-meaning people wanted me to slow down because they were worried about me, and I'm like, no, this is not going to affect my life. So I've done everything that I can to live life to the full, despite having chronic digestive problems. I live with Crohn's disease. I've lived with IBS as well, and finding ways to live my best life regardless of dealing with all of those symptoms.
Amazing. Just thinking a bit wonky there. Amazing. And we'll talk a bit more about your story as we go along, actually. And quite an interesting story you do have, don't you, my darling? So without further ado, then, let's crack on with that, right? So as you very well said just now, that this is the work that you do right now, working with people to help them with their digestion and health issues. But that hasn't always been who the job that you've done and the person that you are today. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your backstory, about how you ended up being you and doing what you do now, my love?
So I mean, I've lived with Crohn's disease since I was 15, but as I said there, being unstoppable was I'm not letting this stop me. And I was very career focused, and I ended up in corporate IT. I started off as a computer programmer and worked my way up the ranks into leadership. And in the end, I was leading teams of computer programmers building large analytical data warehouses for the largest banks in the UK.
Wow.
But with that role came a lot of stress, and that stress started having quite an impact on my health, and it triggered a flare-up in Crohn's disease. I had gone into remission, but the escalating stress of that career brought on a flare-up. It also brought on a diagnosis of IBS as well, to the point where, I mean, I don't say that I reached burnout, because in my mind I didn't, because my mind was still there and ready to go. It was my body was saying, nope, I can't do this anymore. And it was during a time when I was signed off work for about a month. I could barely leave my house. And I looked around, and I was in my dream house. I'd always wanted to live in a converted barn, and I'd got that. I'd got all of these things. But it was one of those sort of epiphany moments of everything I have is material. I live to work. I have no social life. And I'd always loved travel, but felt I had too much to give up to go traveling. So I used to do a lot of adventure trips. But in that moment, I'm like, actually, I could give all of this up. And within a couple of days, I decided to take a career break, sell all of my belongings, and I bought a ticket to travel the world, even though I could barely leave my house.
Wow. That's huge, isn't it? That's huge. And at the time, was you living on your own, or what was your kind of background at that point?
I lived on my own. I'd travelled. I'd moved a number of times with my career. I grew up in Sussex, close to Brighton. But at that point, I was living up in Wolverhampton, and I'd been moving for several years with different careers, but still living on my own. I was, that career girl.
Yeah. So you didn't have to ask anyone else's permission, so to speak.
No, it was all me.
Oh, okay. So how did that make you feel then when you made that decision and you quit?
And well, that relief, you do feel like there's a bit of weight lifted off of those shoulders. I was too sick to go straight away. I think I gave my work 3 months notice. But even just making that decision helped me manage the stress better. And I gave myself 8 months to get well enough to travel. And although I was still dealing with a degree of active symptoms when I traveled, I was a lot better than I was when I actually came to that decision to give it all up and go. The plan was to go and travel through for a year through the Americas.
And what did you do then? If that was the plan, what was the outcome?
I had 3 months in the United States. I volunteered for a scientist who I'd worked with in Cuba on an Earthwatch project.
Oh, wow.
He did research into the Cuban sandhill crane, and I had a great research holiday with him and a brilliant group of people. And then when I decided to take this trip, I got in touch with him and I said, is there anything that I can do to help he works out of Nebraska, and he remembered my IT skills. So he was like, we always need IT help. So I volunteered there for 3 months, helping to build a data capture system for them to record all of the sightings of the whooping crane in Nebraska. Wow. I then went down to Central America with a plan to travel for 3 months. I spent a month in Guatemala. I spent 3 weeks in Spanish school, and then did a bit of traveling and ended up in this place called Semek Champay, which is just beautiful. Like, I can't put it into words. It's just amazing. And I got offered a job in a youth hostel there. And I so wanted to stay, but I had a commitment in Costa Rica to volunteer at a sloth sanctuary for 7 weeks.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh, do I stay? I was torn. Do I stay here in this beautiful place, or do I go and work with the sloths? And I carried on my trip. I kept with my plan. And I regretted it, not working with the sloths, which was amazing, but the organization was really more focused on what they made out of the sloths rather than the work of the animals. So I regretted not staying in Guatemala. So at that point, I was project manager, that corporate IT planning. And I'm like, I need to throw this plan out of the window and let myself just be guided by the universe. And that's what I did in Costa Rica. And I was supposed to spend 7 weeks there. I went to a local village, surf village, which I hadn't planned to visit because it said it was a party town with no culture, but it was a melting pot of culture. I mean, this is Rastafarians, surfers, beach life, jungle. And I signed up to learn how to dive. Well, actually, to become a dive master. I'd never dived before in my life, and I signed up to be a dive master.
Wow.
So I spent the next 11 months learning to work in the dive industry. I left for 3 months and then came back. So 7 weeks turned into eventually nearly 11 years of living in the jungle of Costa Rica.
Wow. So what brought you back then?
I think it was just time. We talk about, it's a village called Puerto Viejo, and we talk about it being the vortex. It draws people in, but it's also a place, it's called a sunny place for shady people. And it's one of those places where you can walk a fine line. You could cure yourself of cancer, or you could drink yourself to death. So, and I think I learned all of my lessons there, and it was time for me to leave. I think you get a little nudge when your time's up there, and if you don't heed it, then you get a bit of a kick.
Wow.
It was changing a lot. It wasn't the travelers centre that it was when I first got there. A lot of tourism. It was a lot of tourists coming in. Crime had changed. It was getting a lot more expensive. And I think it was just my time. It was time for the next chapter in my life, and to take all of my lessons that I'd learned there and to help share that with others.
And what lessons in particular then did you learn that you wanted to share?
Having a slower pace of life, in whatever way you can achieve that. It's creating space for self, for self-care, for slowing down enough to appreciate what is going on around you and what's going in the present moment. Simplicity. I mean, for many years I had no hot water. The electricity would go off, the water would get cut off. There wasn't convenience foods. It was I used to cook all of my own food. It was going and visiting people. It was going out for the day. It was going to the shops and allowing a couple of hours because you're bound to bump into this person and that person, have a chat. And diversity, and that taking control of your life, that empowerment, is stepping into your power. And it's one of the things that coming back that was very apparent was 2 phrases that I would hear everyone say: I can't, and I don't have time. And it's the way that people kind of put that as if it's being done to them, rather than they're acknowledging that they often have a choice. So it's
their
like,
story. It's just their story they're telling themselves, right?
I mean, that I can't do this. There's very little we physically can't do. You choose to do something else, and that is okay. But own that, recognize it.
Yeah.
The same as I don't have time. You do have the time. You choose to prioritize something else over this, and that is okay. And it's okay to say, I'm sorry, but there are other things that I want to do with my time.
And I totally agree with everything you just said there, because that is the whole of my group program, actually, and how I work with my clients. It's like, you've got to put yourself first. It's quite alien, because people feel guilty, because especially, but you know, I'm not saying men don't, but especially working mothers, and you know, we both know that I spent 35 years in the corporate world, right? I was a working mum. I was single some of it, then met someone else, so all of that goes with it. But I was always the breadwinner, so I always had that responsibility. But you get in a situation like you did where you kind of feel trapped because I didn't know a way out of it.
Yeah.
Because I was caught up in, the money, I suppose. I mean, don't get me wrong, I weren't super, super rich or anything, but I earned more than most people who I know. But I wasn't happy.
But it's expectations as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You get caught up into that trap of following societal expectations of what we do with our lives. That you get a job, you climb the ladder, you get a mortgage, it's all of these things that you follow, and you get caught up in it.
You do, and the more money you earn, the bigger house you have, the bigger the bills you have, or everything else, isn't it? So it's all kind of like relative, and I'm not saying that for people. It's like not like, oh, poor you or anything, is it? It's just a fact, isn't it?
You live to your means.
Exactly, you live to your means. But what I find I find everything you said very interesting, but some of the points are about people feeling stressed and burnt out, but most people don't know they're burnt out until they're burnt out, right? Or don't even know what burnt out really is. It's kind of not one of those things that a word that gets thrown around, isn't it? But actually, most people don't know they're burnt out until they get up one morning and they can't get out of bed, or their whole body's just given up on them, or they have got lots of psychological and or physical conditions, because that's when we're not listening to our body, right? And this is what I've learned in all of my last few years of doing what I'm doing now, is that our whole body is our subconscious mind, and we can't think our way out of everything. You're probably similar to me, like worked in that environment where it's like, think. And you actually said something earlier, about you didn't think you were burnt out. It was your body that told you were burnt out. But that is the thing. You didn't think you were, but you were, because your body is the same. We are one, right? But when we don't acknowledge our feelings and we suppress them or suppress them, repress or suppress them, or we go into escapism, don't we? When that's, when we get into bad habits of drinking, drugs, smoking, whatever it is that people do, gamble, go into the addiction mode, because that's that way of not dealing with our feelings. And that's what most of us are caught up in. I was definitely in that camp too. I'm not sitting here all high and mighty going, oh, that was me, right? But now I know different. And that's what I want to teach, and you do too, teach other people that there is a different way around that. And we are what we eat, right? We are what we do or don't do. And I absolutely love what you were saying just then. We can make those choices, but own them. And funny enough, you said about being too busy. Like, there's 3 main problems in my group program that I aim to solve, right? Number 1 is not respecting ourselves. So we're not understanding what's going on with our body, the mind. So I teach them all about that. Then it's the other side of if you imagine like a triangle, the other side of the triangle is about being too busy, being busy. So I teach them all about the story we're telling ourselves and how to manage your time better, practical stuff too. But then the poor health to health reboot, what happens to our body when we don't we don't understand the connection, and we don't let go, and we don't release these trapped feelings and emotions. But it's really interesting, because we all feel guilty for taking time out for ourselves. And like you said, what you were saying, it's like, well, I haven't got enough time. Well, we've all got the same amount of time in a day.
Yeah.
It's about how we prioritize it and what story we're telling ourselves of why we can't do something. And then, like you said, we'll own it, but don't come crying to me when you can't do all the things you want to do, or you are getting sick, or you're not looking after yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't just, we're on borrowed time really when we're doing that, and we're ignoring our feelings and everything else, aren't we? That's what we
get time back. You can't get time spent back. It's about making the most of the time that you've got in the moment. And people say about don't have time, but it's like, look at what you do with your time. Really break it down into half-hour slots. How are you spending your time? Where could you create time? And when I'm working with my clients, I mean, I'm nutrition led, but nutrition is just a part of it. I'm nutrition led because nutrients give you the resources that you need to fuel your body and to feel good. But there's so much more to it than that, because the whole lifestyle and mental attitude is what it all has to be looked at as in big
as a holistic approach, isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, it's very easy to follow my nutritional advice. This is what gets in the way.
Yes.
So most of the work is around working with these behaviors and these expectations, and a lot of the time baggage that people have picked up along the way. So like finding time, it's like, yeah, well, if I can find time, if you leave it to finding time, you'll never find the time. You have to make time. You have to carve time out of your day and make it your own. So for me, I carve time out in the morning. I'm part of the 5 a.m. club. I get up early. The first thing I do within 15 minutes of getting out of bed, I'm exercising. I'm doing a HIIT workout. Because if I didn't do it then, I would not find the time. So I carve out that time at the middle of the day. I spend some time doing some sort of personal development, maybe a bit of journaling, a bit of positive thinking. I'm a big fan of like positive affirmations. I started on that when I was in Costa Rica, and I felt very silly doing it at the time, putting sticky notes on my mirror and walking along. I used to walk along the beach to the dive shop and saying out loud how grateful I was for things, gratitude practice.
That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
And saying it out loud and saying how great myself is, and just changing that negative pattern. It was only when I started that practice that I realized how negative my internal voice was. I think it can be quite disruptive and destructive as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's that mental side of things is where the health coaching comes in, is really helping people to remove these barriers from them being the best that they can be, from them changing these habits, from finding time. And it's habit creation. We've created a habit of doing things a certain way. And we have habits that are beneficial to us and habits that aren't. And so it's not just about habit creation, it's about habit destruction. It's getting out of these habits that aren't beneficial for our well-being and creating new ones. But doing it in a way where, so I mean, I say I'm nutrition led, but I'm not a fan of diets.
No, I agree.
We need to be able to, we need to be able to enjoy life. We need to be able to enjoy food. So it's not about taking stuff away. It's about enriching our lives and doing it in a way that promotes our health and well-being and gives us that energy and vitality to make the most out of life now and going into the future.
Yeah, because it's about having the knowledge, isn't it? Like you say, I don't like using the word diets either, because people that have been on them all their life have been on them all their lives, right? For a reason, because but the undercurrent of that though is because when they get to a certain point, there'll be some subconscious belief that they've got that stops them from doing it. Like, for example, I haven't particularly worked with weight, but when I did my rapid transformational training with Marissa Peer, she always talked lots of different stories. But if say, for example, someone's had something traumatic happen to them in their childhood, right? They might have come up with it, say you were like 5 or 6 and you were being abused or something like that, right? So someone that, as a small child, you might have created a belief that if only I was bigger, they wouldn't come anywhere near me, for example, right? So, and that probably would have worked. But as they've got older, they've never been able to get rid of that weight because they haven't felt that safety and security. You know, that's quite an extreme example, but you can go on all the diets that you want, but you won't ever be the thin person that you want to be, because as soon as you start going down the scales, if you like, you'll kick back and go, no, because I don't feel safe, right? So there's so much that goes on in our subconscious mind that stops us from changing our habits. And that's one of the big things I work with my clients, because I'm working with the subconscious mind. We can go to the root cause of what's causing whatever it is that's going on for them. And normally it will be something that's gone on in their childhood, some trauma or beliefs that they've created. And that hitting their head against that brick wall all the time, every time they try and do something. The same with, like, if they're going into escapism with drinking or smoking or whatever it is, it's their way of not wanting to feel, because there's something stopping them from wanting to do that. So it's getting to the root of it. And we could work really well together, actually, I reckon, because I could have all the clients that have got real deep rooted stuff that you can't fix in your general processing, because unless you're changing deep rooted subconscious mind, because you can consciously say what you like, can't you? You can consciously say, oh, I'm amazing and I'm this, I'm that, but as soon as you're not consciously thinking about it, your subconscious mind comes in and goes, yeah, but you're not, I know.
And that's where the internal that internal work comes into play, isn't it? Because it is into that. I've done a little work with internal family systems.
Oh yes, that's good, isn't it?
So that's a really interesting therapy to play around with. And getting people, it's like, what are these stories that we tell ourselves, and where have they come from? And it doesn't even need to, I think we think about these traumatic events when we're younger, but it can be a sentence that someone said to you as a child, or a single experience that your subconscious mind connected with something, and that over time it was maybe protective at the time, but it no longer serves you, but it still plays this active role in your self-consciousness.
Absolutely. And well, obviously we know this, but a lot of people won't know this, that between 0 and 7 is when we create our main belief system, right? And we don't have logic either at that point, so our brain's not developed enough. So how scary is that? If you've not done any work on yourself, doesn't matter what age you are, you're potentially living your life on beliefs that you created maybe when you were 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
Why would we do that? You know, knowing what we know now, it kind of is like, if you've got a phone, mobile phone or a laptop or a desktop, once it starts getting a bit out of date, you chop it in and upgrade it, don't you?
Or reset. Yeah, you press
reboot it or whatever. But either way,
we don't have that, do we?
No, and we carry on. We don't drop off this stuff. We just keep building and building and building, and then that's why as we get older, we have more issues, because it's that build up, isn't it, of problem after problem after, trapped feeling, trapped emotion, limiting belief, and then till your body just goes, do you know what? I can't do this anymore. I've given you so many messages. I've given you so many hints, but you've ignored me. Like your example of, you couldn't get out. I think you said you couldn't get out of bed, didn't you, when you was in that corporate world where your body just kind of gave up on you. Did I make that bit up? Sorry if I did. But you were saying like your body just gave up on you in a way.
It was my body gave up.
Yeah. But it would have been sending you messages all along, but you just chose to ignore them, right?
Yeah, and that's where, this thinks it knows best. And that's why I like, the books, like The Body Knows the Score.
Oh, yes.
And when the body says no, it's like your body, I do a lot of work with, the gut-brain connection, but that gut everything connection. It's obviously for obvious reasons with my own health background, that's why I specialize in gut, but the gut is such a fascinating area of study, because people think about gut health as what they eat, But the gut is connected to so many things. It's connected to, obviously, gut-brain health, so it directly affects how you feel, mood balance, affects your skin health. So if you suffer a lot with eczema or psoriasis and things, then a lot of that's coming from the gut, the gut-heart connection. And so there's the gut has such an influence over everything. And then when people are trying to address gut problems, so whether they're dealing with bloating, constipation, acid reflux, a lot of where they go to is cutting foods out, which is very much it's that NHS, that sick care system. It's about addressing symptoms. So you take away what's causing the symptoms, but can't add it back in because it's only a part of the problem. So it's looking at, well, what are the other parts of the problem that need to be resolved?
Agreed. It's interesting, isn't it, that we will quite happily go to see a GP or get a specialist or whatever to give us a diagnosis, and then we're kind of almost, I say happy in inverted commas, we're happy with that because then we've got something. But actually, you probably wouldn't have that if you'd actually looked after yourself and did the self-care and ate properly, did your exercise, you did the mental health work that you needed to do to get to the root cause of what's going on for us, then you wouldn't have those in the first place.
And that's where I think tying back in with what you were saying about what you learn in those first 7 years. What I find a lot with like the way people eat, a lot of people are still eating the way that they were, how they were grown up, the same kind of food that the family cooked. And they don't reconsider what they're eating and how that should change as you age as well. Because your nutritional needs when you're a teenager are different to when you're a 70-year-old. But it's like, how do you change that as you move on? But it's this, I think it's the same with the healthcare system as well. You get into this, you've got this, we get to health crisis. I did it. You keep going and you keep going and your body knows, you feel it. You start, you're less energy. You start shutting down things in your life that you're not able to do comfortably anymore, that you don't have the energy for, or you don't feel comfortable doing. So a lot of people with a lot of bloating and pain from that will stop going out to eat out at restaurants because of the unpredictability. They don't know what might trigger them. So you start shutting down all of these elements in your life, trying to protect yourself,
fix it,
keep on going. Instead of and then go to the doctor and get a pill to fix it. But that pill doesn't fix it. The pill just tries to mask what is in most cases. And where I really want to get to is getting people a lot earlier and don't get to health crisis. Recognize what's going in your body, this intuitive eating, the listening to the body, and start building these diet and lifestyle habits that support ongoing good health, instead of getting to a point where there's a lot of work to get yourself out of an ill state. And it's a lot easier to keep yourself well rather than getting yourself back to wellness after you've let it go too far.
Absolutely. And this is where it all goes back to taking care of yourself, self-care, respecting yourself, right? And absolutely, totally agree with everything you just said there. And it's like, people will go, oh, but the doctor said that, or the doctor said I'll never get better. Well, doesn't mean you won't, because scientists, doctors are scientists, right? they don't always, some of them do now, but a lot of them aren't in tune with the holistic side, are they? Because it's all about how much money we can spend on drugs to build the profits of the pharmaceutical companies. They're not interested, a lot of them, in understanding this. And a lot of it's all scientifically proven now as well, isn't it? Which is good, because people won't believe all this holistic stuff unless it's scientific proven, but they can do a lot of that now with brain scans and different technology. So I'm glad that the science is catching up with the holistic side, so people can be a bit more happy that it's proven. But equally, I think sometimes we have to open our eyes to what's going on in this world and not take everything as face value, and research things yourself and make your own decisions, because we're too busy jumping on everyone's bandwagon about, oh, this is terrible and all this and I'm not going to even mention anything in particular because we could go on, right? But don't just get on everyone's bandwagon and just go, oh yeah, that's terrible. Is it? Well, what facts have you got about it then? Have you looked into it? Is what they're saying true, or are you just agreeing with them and then spreading that word even more? Take responsibility for what you're spilling out of your mouth and do some research.
And that's what I do with people is really empowering people to own their health journey. And it is challenging, because in this day and age of information overload and, the influencer market out there, there's so much misinformation. And there's a lot of dangerous information, and people get overwhelmed by all of
for sure.
And this is, how I work with people. People have got to the point where, they're like, I don't know what to do. So I'm able to then, I focus on personalized nutrition. And so we are all beautifully unique. So we each have our own personal health journey. And following what everyone else is doing isn't aligned to your personal needs. No. So that's where I help people identify what their personal path is to wellness, and getting people to be interested in that and to really want to feel better. And I think I say it's like seeing life through a filter. It's like, because chronic conditions, chronic illness creeps up on us in a lot of ways, it's like you gradually get this filter coming down on you, and that life isn't as vibrant anymore. You haven't got that energy, but it all happens quite slowly, that you don't realize how much you're missing out of. And if you could just take that veil away, then someone would be, oh my God, I feel so different. But the body's an amazing thing. It adapts, but you're not living life as vibrantly as you could if you're not really focused on giving your mind, your body, your spirit what it needs to live life vibrantly.
Exactly. And this is why we have to get out of our heads that it's actually that we should feel guilty for putting ourselves first, because for all the reasons you've just described, right? So if we carry on living our lives of ignoring our body, right, and not listening to it, then we are going to hit a brick wall of some kind. It's just inevitable, right? It's just the nature of the beast, right? So if we can start at the earliest age that we can possibly do, is to start understanding the mind, body and soul connection. I always knew about those words, but I didn't really get what it all meant until obviously being on my journey. And it's not about being woo-woo and, oh, this is all too much for me. Let's just get to basics, right? If you look after yourself, let's cover off what a few things of looking after yourself is, right? Number one, right, you have to eat and choose your nutritional value, right? Because there is the saying, you are what you eat, right? Yeah. And if you're not eating the right foods, you're not going to have the right energy levels. You're not feeding your body what it needs, right? And then that has an effect. If you're not taking time out for yourself, and let's look at time out. Well, time out can be, it really, what we should all be doing is like you said, because I do the same, get up in the morning. You have to get up at whatever time that you need to fit this in, right? Do some exercise, do some meditation, take some time out, set your intention for the day and be present. We have to be present so that we can tap into our heart and into our intuition. And that's where all the magic happens, right? You know, so then what else? It's a bit, doing your exercise, because that is like giving you that dopamine, serotonin hit. So you feel better anyway, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing is about getting this engaged, because it all starts with your thoughts, right? We've got a thing called a RAS, reticular activating system, and that acts as the filter, right, in the back of your neck. So when you wake up in the morning, if the first thing you say is something really negative, oh God, I'm never going to get that job interview. It's never going to happen. Right. The RAS will filter all of that, and it will focus on what you don't want. That's what it's going to go and spend the day thinking about. So what you think about, you bring about, right? So which is what you was saying earlier on. We've got to switch this. But I get that people don't understand this stuff. I didn't really understand it. You wouldn't have understood it way back when. Right? That's why they come to you. That's why they come to me, because we have spent thousands and thousands of pounds investing in ourselves, thousands and thousands of hours learning this stuff, so that you don't have to get overwhelmed and stressed out, trawling the internet, trying to find this bit of information, that bit of information, because we've done it for you.
Yeah,
right?
I've lived with snakes and scorpions and
and that wasn't even in the corporate world, was it?
Oh, downpours. In a month we'd get a year's worth of UK rain in 1 month. And
exactly.
it's like, so that's why I say to people, look, I've gone on my jungle journey, so you don't have to.
Hence your jungle goddess. Yes, love it. So we're running out of time, darling. I can't believe it's gone I can believe it's gone this quick, because it always does. But let's do a very quick wrap up then. I mean, you did start to do that a little while ago, actually. But if you just want to wrap up again around what it is you can do for people and how they can find you. Don't worry too much about calling out all the socials, because we'll put that on. But just do a little summary of what kind of packages, if you like, or what you can offer your people.
Yeah, so I work with people one-to-one on personalised programs, so helping to overcome digestive struggles and really getting that vibrancy and energy back into your life. Stress is a big trigger, so I work a lot with breathwork to help with addressing the stress issues. So I'm also developing a group program to help people over the course of 8 weeks to come together in a community and work together to find this space, this way forward for digestive freedom, but also this vibrancy of health. I have a newsletter that people can sign up to, so they can get access to that via my website, and they can start off with their gut health guide so they can start their steps towards better gut health.
Amazing. So for me, the same as Nikki, really. I work with clients on a one-to-one basis, but I also work with them in my group program, which I've pretty much finished now, but it's open for people in it, and it is as I described across this program. But it is an amazing group community, but it isn't just a training program where I'm just talking at you. We've got deep dive hypnosis in it, we've got audios, we've got growth work exercises, we've got somatic tools and techniques, breathing techniques to help you release and feel from your body. I'm really super proud of it. I've got some people in it already who are really benefiting from that. And also I'm out there doing talks and that to businesses to try and help I don't want to go back to the corporate world in the way that we were in it before, but I feel like with my 35 years experience, the knowledge that I've got now, then how can I not be of use to companies out there who want to get more out of their staff? Let's be honest. Right.
Well, we've been there, haven't we? We've been there. We know what it's like, and we can help people on that path of change.
Yeah.
And hopefully to the point where they don't have to jump ship if they If they don't want to,
exactly. It's not about us encouraging people to give up and leave, is it? It's about, I wish I'd known this stuff when I was in the corporate world, because we'd probably both be in it still, right? Earning really good money, but also living a good life still, because we would know all this and we would be able to bring that into that world. So yeah, it's, you know, it's a no-brainer. I'm sorry, it has to be a no-brainer. And as I always say to people, self-care and looking after yourself isn't an option, it's mandatory. And it's about time that we started understanding this and we prioritized our time and our money on looking after things that benefit us, because if they benefit us, they benefit everybody else. It's that ripple effect, right? You can't be the best mum, the best wife, the best husband, the best father, the best mother, daughter, whatever, if you're not the best version of yourself. And what an inspiration you'll be to your kids when they look up to you and go, do you know what? You're amazing.
You know what? Remembering one client that I worked with, and her goal was to be able to enjoy life with her grandchild. She didn't have the energy, she didn't have the mobility, and she was young enough that she should have done. And she was seeing that she was missing out on this whole experience with her granddaughter because she hadn't prioritized her health.
Herself, yeah. And that's so true for everyone, isn't it? But on that little bombshell, we're going to have to go. But contact either of us if you think we can help you. And if you've got any questions, just pop them into the chat and we'll get back to you. And thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure getting to know you as well. We hope you've enjoyed it. And I look forward to seeing you with my next guest in my next interview. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.